Hey y'all, welcome to bcentrictv, and as you see by the title, we're going to be talking about pretty privilege today, right? And as the title states, I'm pretty. I feel like I'm pretty. There's some people out here that think I'm pretty, but I don't think I really benefit from what we call pretty privilege, right? Or maybe I do, or I don't know, because I'm up in arms if this is even a real thing, because I have my thoughts about it. We're going to talk about who quote unquote benefits from it and who doesn't, and also some other things. So if you want to know more about this topic like I want to know, let's get into the video. So just like most people, I learned about pretty privilege through social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, different things like that. And for me, it's relatively new. I think I've learned about it within the last 3 to 4 years. Before that, I've never heard the term pretty privilege, right? I'm gonna talk more about the United States beauty of standard of beauty, because this is where I stay. I stay in the United States. So what exactly is pretty privilege? So pretty privilege is defined as, it states, it operates on the principle that people who are more conventionally attractive based on societal beauty standards have more advantages and opportunities compared to people who are deemed less attractive. So those who hold the societal standard, like I said, they get special treatment, whether they might get the job, whether they might get that record deal, better higher on the algorithm when it comes to social media, different things like that. Get asked out by guys, probably don't have to pay for anything. So there are many advantages that they say come with people who are conventionally pretty. And the people who are the enforcers of this, which is many of us, we are experiencing the halo effect. Now, the halo effect is defined as a cognitive bias that causes people's impression of one aspect of something to influence their impression of other aspects of it. And to add on to that, it's the psychology term that describes an error in reasoning based on one single trait of another person or thing. So the halo effect basically is stating that a person may have a bias, and this bias could be good or bad. Now, it's not necessarily always works in that other person's favor, but say you do see someone who is considered conventionally pretty, you may assume great qualities about them that are totally irrelevant, because you are assuming they're a good person, you're assuming they're a nice person or intelligent person because they look good, when in reality their intelligence has nothing to do with what they physically look like. So in that regards, that person is experiencing the halo effect. And I think everyone at some point has been guilty of that, making those assumptions and those biases towards people. Now, as we know also, standards of beauty, and beauty is subjective, right? So the standard of beauty will vary based on your geographically, it's going to vary. So what someone considers beautiful in Korea may not be what someone considers beautiful in India, the United States, Africa, so forth and so on. But what we can agree is that if it's a country that's pretty much been colonized by Europeans, it's probably had some type of whitewashing done to the people to believe that the closer that you are to these Eurocentric features, the more beautiful you are. That's why you have people in Africa and the Caribbean, and some people in the United States and other countries as well, where there's people of color that often bleach their skin to get closer to white, a more pale look. A lot of people get nose jobs and different things like that to narrow their features to get that Eurocentric feature, because that is the standard. that is a standard too. If we want to be real, it's probably the universal standard. However, we do know that maybe people that live in as far as America, people that live in the South, they might like their women a little thicker or something like that, versus someone out in California where maybe a thinner frame is more attractive. So those things do vary, but in reality, when we look at the standard, it's typically going to be white or light, narrow features. So people who may fit, as far as black people who may fit the aesthetic, we can look at people like Saweetie, we can look at people like Lori Harvey, because a lot of people talk about those women in particular in regards to pretty privilege, because they tend to get the men, they get to do these things and become successful basically because they're pretty. And this is not to negate any of those ladies, because I do think that Sweetie is talented, and I do think she's worked hard to get where she is, and she's a smart young lady. I don't know much about Lori Harvey. I don't follow her, so I can't really say, but she's a beautiful young woman as well. And I'm pretty sure you got to have some kind of smarts about you to be able to maneuver around the way she does, right? So she ain't no fool. So I titled this like, I am pretty, but I don't experience or benefit from pretty privilege. And I believe in that I'm a pretty woman, you know, and this is not to be conceited or anything like that, but I do have confidence in myself to believe that I look good. And it's not to say that I don't have my bad days, and I don't have days where I feel frumpy and not good. That's normal. But overall, I feel pretty good about myself. Now, I will say, as a child, I didn't always have that level of confidence. And although I truly never felt I was an ugly child, there were people out in the world, as far as children, more than likely, because I was a child, that made sure that that confidence wasn't boosted too high, because I wasn't looked at as the pretty girl. Although I never really thought that I was ugly, people made me feel or made me think that I was. I have dark skin. I have a wide nose. I have big lips, big eyes. I have very Afrocentric features and dark skin. And then on top of that, I have a very light-skinned mother and a light-skinned sister that's right under me. So imagine my life, right? So, however, as an adult, I definitely gained more confidence, and it's crazy because a lot of those things I was very much made fun of are the very much things that people tend to compliment me on now as an adult. But through it all, regardless to whether they compliment, I get the compliments or not, I feel pretty good about myself in my life and how I look right now. Now, this leads me, as I talk about my nose, my lips, and things like that, when we think about the standard of beauty, I am not the standard of beauty. Even if there are people who feel that I am pretty, I'm not the standard. Like I stated, I have everything that is opposite to what the standard of beauty is. I don't have a narrow nose. I don't have smaller lips. My skin is dark. All of those things, right? So I don't fit the aesthetic, and I don't have the look of what society would consider pretty. So the thing that made me think about it was like, I don't have those features, but I can kind of say that I have been in situations where I do believe I benefited off of my looks. So then I'm like, well, did I have pretty privilege? Like, was that pretty privilege that I may have gotten a job because I had a nice smile? Or did I, get the guy to buy the drinks or whatever it is, pay for this, pay for that because I look nice, I look good, or whatever it is, whatever it may have been, to get me maybe a step forward, whatever the situation may have been. And I never really thought about it prior until, pretty privilege became a big topic. But I'm like, I don't feel like I do it I feel like I've had situations that may have helped that I'm a nice looking person. But I feel like on a bigger scale, I don't benefit from it. And I also think, like I said, your geographics really depend. You know, I live in a smaller city, so maybe I might be considered something where I live. Whereas if I go to California, they may look at me and be like, girl, you can't get in this club. You know, so I think about that too. So I can say yes, I feel like I've benefited because I am a nicer looking person. But what I can say is I feel like I've also not benefited, and I don't think it's because I'm a nicer looking person. I'm not a nice looking person. I think it has a lot to do with colorism. There's times I've been pushed to the side, too dark in situations, or not looked at because I wasn't the lighter skinned friend or whatever it may have been. And this is no shape or form me saying I'm definitely not jealous of nobody. I'm definitely not living my life based on someone else's compliments or these men or whatever it is. It's just an experience. It's just me speaking on experiences and things that I've noticed. So in no shape or form did I cry because I didn't get picked over that light-skinned girl. In no shape or form. And I just want to say that just to make sure that people understand where I'm coming from. But I will say I don't feel like some of the benefits that I may have had trumps being dark skinned. So this is where it leads me to question pretty privilege and if it's even a real thing. Because when we think about pretty privilege, like I mentioned, the people who typically truly benefit from it on a larger scale and a smaller scale have very specific features. So when we think about it, you got to bring it to the isms. You got to bring them isms and them phobias into it and think about how they play a role in pretty privilege. You have racism, colorism, you have featureism, fat phobia, and texturism, and also, you know, people who may be disabled, right? They're not able-bodied, so you got to think about those people too. So when we think about, when I talk about the whitewashing and how the standard of beauty is pretty much the blue-eyed white, what I'm talking about? The blue-eyed, blonde hair white woman and things like that, narrow features and stuff like that. That's because of racism, colonialism, and all things like that. And because of that, it birthed colorism, where people who are of a lighter complexion within communities of people of color, whether you're Black, Indian, the other Asians and things like that, Hispanics, people who typically are closer to white are the ones who get most of the benefits. And then you have featureism. That's the narrow features, not so full lips, narrow nose, just very Eurocentric, right? And then of course you have fat phobia. I really don't like the word fat phobia. I wish there was another word for it, but that's the word people use. Whereas you're not looked at as pretty because you're fat. You can have the most beautiful face, but there are people out there that just many people who are fat are not going to benefit from what we call pretty privilege, right? And then there's texturism, which falls under the umbrella of racism. Because, and also I forgot to mention, I have 4C hair. I have 4C hair. So I don't have those baby hairs that a lot of us out here are trying so hard to emulate and to get. You know, I'm not a big fan of it, but hey, do your thing. So those things, when you name and when you think about all of those things, it really leads you to believe, is pretty privilege really a thing? Or is it actually a misnomer for the isms and the phobias? Because it's almost like minimizing those other things and just slapping pretty privilege on it. Being pretty, like I said, is very subjective, but one thing we have proof of and one thing we can back up with history is that those isms and those phobias can hinder you from progressing in life, from being picked for whatever, a sport, a date, or whatever it may be. Right? So then you have people that might say, well, colorism. You have people like Gabrielle Union. You have, what's that girl name? Ryan Destiny, Naomi Campbell. They're all dark-skinned and very pretty. They are gorgeous women and dark-skinned women. But what do those women also have in common? Maybe with the exception of Ryan Destiny's lips. Those women have very narrow features, a very narrow nose, and this is not taking anything away from them, but that's what we talk about featureism. They get a pass sometimes because they're dark skinned, but I am pretty sure at some point in their lives, them being dark skinned has been a hindrance. It has been a hindrance, but they also have very slim, narrow features that might make someone in the industry say, well, they don't look too black. You know, there are always going to be exceptions to the rules. And those ladies just may be a few of the exceptions to the rules. But they're really not truly exceptions because featureism plays a role, you know, like I stated. And when you have features that are closer to being Eurocentric due to colonialism, you will probably be more accepted, right? When we think about, even bringing it back to Sweetie, one may say, well, Sweetie doesn't have Eurocentric features. She's black and she's Filipino, so she has very ethnic features, which she does. But Sweetie is also light-skinned. There you have light skin privilege, and she also is like the queen of them baby hairs that everybody's out here trying to get, but she has it naturally. And that you have light skin privilege and you have texturism. So those things play a role also into her beauty and why she's considered beautiful, right? Versus someone who may have 4C hair. So when we think about people like Viola Davis, beautiful dark-skinned woman, but she in no shape or form will ever benefit from what we call pretty privilege. So here's the thing. Is pretty privilege real? After all I just said, I'm not gonna lie, this is one of those things where it's a little gray for me. It's not black. Usually I can give a black and white answer, but this topic is a little gray for me, because whereas there are people who benefit, and you can benefit from being better looking. It's not a facade. You can benefit from being a better looking person, a good looking person. However, I feel like when we label it pretty privilege, it almost as if it's not holding people accountable for their anti-blackness. And I think that's where it gets what makes it great for me, because a lot of what we considered pretty is anti-blackness. It's anti-blackness. And even when you do find someone who is pleasing to the eye and still has very African features and darker skin, it's not always in their most natural state. It's typically after they you know, we put on some makeup or really fixed ourselves up, you know, versus someone who is light skinned. They have the 3C hair and racially ambiguous. They may be looked at beautiful without even having to be dolled up. And I don't really think people want to own their anti-blackness. And that's why I'm kind of on the fence with pretty privilege and if it's even really a real thing. I really think a lot of it is just colorism, featureism, texturism, and racism as a whole. I don't feel like, that's why I feel like it's a little bit of a the pretty privilege is a bit of a misnomer, because you take away, it's almost like taking away the power of those things, just saying, well, this person is pretty, so they get the benefit. So I get the benefits. No, this person is light skinned. This person is light skinned, they got the benefit. This person has narrow Eurocentric features. So because of those things, and because the standard of beauty, pretty much we could say as a whole, has been a white woman, is white, a white woman, blonde hair, blue-eyed white woman. It's hard to just minimize it to pretty privilege. But I do get it, and I don't negate people's experiences who feel like pretty privilege is a thing and they don't benefit from it. I truly only feel like I benefit from it on a very small scale. I don't think on a larger scale, or when I go to certain places that are further away, that I really truly benefit from it like that. Because like I said, a lot of it is geographical. A lot of it depends on your demographics, your culture, and things like that. So I really want to know what you all think. Like, what are your experiences? Do you feel like you benefit from pretty privilege, or do you think you don't benefit from pretty privilege? Do you think that the isms and the phobias are really what people are perpetuating, but they label that pretty on it and, you know, kind of diminish the other things and call it for what it really is? Are you kind of up in the air with it just like I am? Like, is it truly pretty privilege, or is it just anti-blackness? And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to please don't forget to like this video and share it. Share the video, and be sure to watch one of my other videos. One gonna be posted here and one gonna be posted here. So go watch those videos, because you're already here. You're already here at bcentrictv. You might as well just stay, you know, and just continue on with another video, then another video, then another one. I mean, why not? So, like always, be beautiful, be black, be you always.